Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire. I am your host Wolvie and today I am joined by Craig, or otherwise known on Instagram and other places as OG Paintworks. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing very well, and yourself, dude?
I'm good, thank you. So one of the first things we always do, for anyone who hasn't seen an episode yet, is we sit down and we're going to do the Rapid Fire challenge. Get in there quick. You try and set as quick a time as you can. Up to this point, this being episode 6. Just had to check the board there. The quickest time was set in episode 5 by Dan at 1:32. So we'll see how you go, and then we're just going to sit down and flesh out your life in hobby and your life in miniatures, and cover a few other topics that I've got written down here. So when you're ready, you give me a thumbs up. We'll get the timer going, and we'll get started on the rapid fire challenge.
All right, I shall do my best, but I make no promises.
We'll see what we can do. And your time starts now. How many years have you been in the hobby?
25.
What game systems do you follow?
All of them except for Armada.
What are your current armies?
Eldar, Grot Mobs, and what's the other one? Oh yeah, Primaris Templars for 40k.
What was your first miniature?
Eldar Guardians.
What was your first full army?
Eldar.
Which model or unit have you enjoyed painting the most?
The most, probably Throg the Troll King.
What model or unit have you enjoyed painting the least?
Anything D&D Nolzers.
What was the last model you completed?
My Run Third.
How much hobby time do you get per week?
At least 35 hours.
What is the single favorite thing about the hobby?
The creative energy.
And the least favorite thing?
Lines of Division.
Okay. Who or what got you into the hobby?
My buddy Dan in high school.
What keeps you in the hobby?
Creative outlet.
And what is your one hobby target for this year?
To paint more to the level I can paint.
Fantastic. So that's all 15 questions kind of rifled up. I kind of lost my place at some point, but I don't think it's hurt your time too much. So obviously the quickest up to this point was 1:32.
Yep.
You did it in 1 minute and 11 seconds.
Come on.
So
triple ones.
You're going straight to the top of the leaderboard.
Wow.
Everybody has beaten the previous time so far. So it's getting more to where, I wanted the rapid fire challenge to be. So I'm really happy with that.
Oh, I'm beside myself. That's fantastic.
Yeah, every time
I was just trying to get it out of my head. I'm like,
like whenever somebody sets a time, I'm like, no one's going to beat that. And then someone comes along and knocks more off. So that's
fantastic. I can't wait to see who knocks that one off.
Well, it might be the person in the next episode. So we'll have to see. So expand then. You obviously said you had a buddy who got you into the hobby. I think that's kind of how we all are, really. We all have a friend or something that kind of gets into his hobby. How did that come about? What caught your eye?
Well, I mean, the Citadel annual catalog from, I think, like 95. He had it in shop class. We were both kind of in high school. He grew up in England, moved to Canada when he was about 10 or 11. And, I kind of look over. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, no, like, what is that? Because like the art, and it almost looked like a comic book, right? Because it was so full of life, so full of color, right? We all remember those old catalogs.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you don't want any of this. I'm like, no, really, what is it? And as soon as he showed me, I was just like rabbit hole, just sucked through the door to Narnia.
So it was obviously the Eldar that caught your eye first. What was it about them then that caught you ahead of the Space Marines and the other stuff that existed at the time?
Well, I mean, I think it was a lot of the bright color choices, plus just kind of like the sleek lines of the armor, kind of like those kind of, I guess, agile silent killers almost. And then the more I dug into the lore, the more I really like gravitated towards them. Like it's a really tragic story, and it's absolutely pretty fantastic. I still love it to this day.
Yeah. Do you still have that, or they're like an Eldar army?
I do have an Eldar army. I rekindled my love probably late last year because for a while I didn't play Craft Worlds between probably 5th edition and 8th edition.
Yeah.
At one point I just needed rent money and get myself through college and whatnot. So I had to sell things off, and I just couldn't bring myself to playing them. They just didn't feel the same as when I started in second edition. And I just thought of a crazy idea of doing mostly constructs and aspect warriors. And now with ninth edition, I can run mostly elite choices and not have to worry about those blasted guardians. So I don't have to paint any of those either.
The guardians that should have been updated a few times over by now.
That's all right. I mean, I'm not going to gripe. I'm happy I have lots of plastics. And I mean,
Yep.
the sculpts are beautiful. When you have Jess Goodwin, at the head of the design studio at the time, doing most of them, and then Darren Latham now, kind of picking up the torch and going from there. You're in good hands no matter when the sculpt was done.
Yeah, I've got into Eldar this year. I sold an army and I've got Eldar this year. So what would you say is advice for somebody? I've not had a chance to play a ninth edition game with Eldar yet.
Yeah.
What would be your advice in terms of running an Eldar list and how to put it together?
Right now, be patient. I'm hoping for a trend similar to what the Dark Eldar look like they're getting, with more attacks, kind of more ability to strike first. But like Craft World specifically is kind of where my wheelhouse is, because I love the aspect warriors. Yeah. And definitely right now with everything, Eldar will win secondaries all day, like 100%. They're more of a deny army for objectives as opposed to take and hold. I mean, they don't really have staying power, and anything that has staying power is a target right away. But because they're so high mobility and they're still kind of like a glass cannon army, for lack of a better term, right? Like they will punish you with firepower. So just stay mobile, like literally stay mobile, and like always be on the front foot. Always, again, try and dislodge people from their objectives. And hopefully when those aspect warriors finally get like an extra wound, maybe a little bit more speed, something to kind of balance for the sake of Craft World, then they'll definitely be a little bit more multi-purpose. But definitely secondaries, first and foremost, you're going to win those all day. And I don't think there's another army other than maybe Grey Knights that can contest them for psychic capabilities.
Yeah, I think with the, obviously, as we film this, the Drakari Codex is going on pre-order this weekend coming. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I'm going to have one eye on that just to see the sorts of things they're doing over there, because it's those sorts of things they're going to bring over to us. Obviously different, but just have a little eye over there and see what they're doing. For sure. As we covered earlier, you kind of said, you follow all of the game systems. I've looked, just one look at your Instagram page says, you're doing something Marvel, you're doing something Warhammer. You've got, talk me through some of the ones. What catches your eye? What, when you look at a game system, do you go, yeah, I want a piece of that?
I've always been a painter first, so needing to paint all of the things usually kind of sparks me. In the last couple of years, I've really caught on to a lot of historical games, or historical based games, we'll say, like Bolt Action. Again, it's World War II on the tabletop. Who doesn't want to paint a Sherman? That's kind of cool. And then as a painter as well, I find the historical stuff, no matter the scale, whether it's like Flames of War or Team Yankee or Bolt Action or like Hail Caesar, you have a very kind of limited color palette to work with. So it's sometimes a challenge to stay within that tiny sandbox and see how close you can get it and do it justice, as opposed to, the sky's the limit. Paint this guy hot pink. What does matter? Even going into like the weathering techniques on a lot of like the vehicles or, armor and things like that, you can also carry that forward and use it towards your 40K, where a lot of people are starting to trend now, giving that little bit of realism to their models.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Obviously, one of my things this year is I want to get into more game systems. So I'm sort of like now branching out, having been back in the hobby kind of a few years. Have you found some recently where you've got the models, you've bought the like starter box set or something like that, and then kind of played the game and you've gone, yeah, I don't like this. I don't really like this game. Has that happened at all? Or
I mean, there have been times where, like when I was playing Flames of War initially, I tried it during second edition, probably 6-7 years ago. And it was still kind of mid-war. They hadn't released a whole lot for late war, which is most of what everybody knows D-Day moving forward, right? So I think in the community that I live in, even though it's a large enough city, it's like 500,000 people, maybe they were kind of like the older gentlemen, we'll call them, from the hobby, like kind of retirees and granddads and whatnot, that mainly played. And I wouldn't say it was gatekeeper-esque, but it was very basement community. So it was kind of hard to kind of crack in and say, hey, I'm really interested in this, but just trying to find a meetup or find an opponent to play at local game clubs, Obviously 40K has always been a big one. Anything Games Workshop is always got a great following, no matter where you are in the world, I'm sure. But as cool as Flames of War was, and I really loved it, and I totally invested in like this kind of British mid-war army, and I just didn't have an opponent, so I kind of had to, like, I didn't even get to play a game with it. I had the army for over 2 years.
Yeah.
I was working away and working away and working away and collected it and made a big one, and I didn't have an opponent, so unfortunately I had to get rid of it. But as far as like picking up a new game system or something, and that's not for me. I don't think I've found that really. I tend to do a lot of research, like a kid kind of in the library, just with his nose in every single book he can find, and do a lot of kind of legwork before I make that investment, right?
Yeah, and that's a good way to be. I'm totally the opposite. I'll get everything and then think about if anyone else wants to play with the game later. So.
Oh well, don't get me wrong. Like I still buy everything, literally.
Oh, okay.
Like,
well, that's
like it's like full on. When I'm hooked on something, like a couple other guests have said, like when you find your hobby, it's like all in. And then there's like the next level of all in here. Take my house, take my watch. Like I want all of these things. And what else do you have coming? Just keep it going. So I tend to do that too. I mean, I wouldn't call it obsessive, but I get very inspired, we'll say. And I run with it.
Yeah, and I think from being like the painter aspect, so two of the game systems that I really like for the models mainly, unfortunately they're made by Night Models, who don't have the best reputation in terms of like building a game initially and I suppose keeping the good flow of models and stock and things like that. I've just bought a Batman set that I'm going to be working on soon. I've got the Harry Potter miniatures game because two big things that really really appeal to me, but I don't think I'm going to get a game of them anytime soon. but it's go out and invest and give me all the crews, give me all, I want to paint Harry Potter, I want to paint Batman, I want to paint the Joker. So I completely get that. So earlier on you said about two of your two sculptors, Jez Goodwin and Darren Latham. I've had the pleasure of actually meeting Darren at Warhammer World about 2 years ago. Who would you consider like your hobby heroes? Because Darren Latham is mine. I think he's just brilliant.
I guarantee probably because of his paint job on Asherman, that really kind of sucked me in when he was on the heavy metal team, as far as like the Eldar painting and like really, 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 I mean, it's hard not to be excited when you hear these gentlemen talk, like Jess Goodwin, any of the interviews he's always had, even seeing like his little liner notes and stuff and his different sketchbooks, and like you see pure enjoyment from what he does. Obviously it takes time, and we all know it's a pursuit of passion. So it comes and goes, ebbs and flows. But I mean, just hearing how engaged they are and like how switched on about everything that they get a chance to do, and how humble those guys are, like they've always said, I feel very fortunate for the position I'm in today. I never dreamt it would happen. And they kind of chuckle about it. But it's just that kind of level-headedness, that kind of earthy kind of vibe from them too, right? That keeps it honest and genuine. And I mean, as far as like a hero role model, mentor, so to speak, kind of thing, or somebody that you kind of look to, I'd say those two specifically. For wargaming in general, I mean, Rick Priestley, another OG GW guy, but I mean, he's done a lot of stuff for like Warlord Games, right? Like a lot of different historical stuff, but same deal. Like he's just totally, jazzed about what he gets to do. And the fact that he's made a career out of it is just mind boggling, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think meeting Darren, for example, he just came along. Myself and a friend of mine were playing on one of the tables at Warhammer World. He's kind of, he's there kind of looking up. I'm like, Darren Latham. He comes along, he's looking at the miniatures, and he's like, he said, can I pick that one up there? And I was like, yes, of course.
You sculpted the thing, you deserve to.
And that's exactly, he's picked up, and I've got it in my cabinet. I didn't sell it with the rest of my Space Wars because he's had his hands on it. He's complimented it. He said it was a lovely clean paint job. And he said, the additions you've made to this, I would never have seen that. And he just gave me some compliments and stuff like that. And he was just such a, like you say, such a down-to-earth guy who, I'm sure when he walks through the gaming hall, everybody wants a picture. Everybody wants to ask him questions. Some people shy away from that. Some people wouldn't perhaps want that. But like I say, most of the guys that, in the hobby seem to just be regular dudes that are just recognizable. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's great, because you know it's almost like they're one of us.
Oh,
You know,
exactly, right.
they're still one of us. They just want to play games and roll dice just as much as the rest of us. So that's really cool. So I mean, you are one hell of a painter. Sometimes you put something out and I just look at my collection and go, I might as well bin all that. Like, I'm joking, obviously, but you know, your paint style is really awesome. How have you developed that over time? Have you done like tutorials? Is it self-taught? Like, how do you build your painting style?
Well, I mean, just trying to be better than I was yesterday in some cases. I think a lot of it comes down to also being a commission painter as long as I have. So the fact that I've had multiple subject matters, multiple, things to work on. It's like been BattleTech. It's been some weird like lead fantasy miniatures. It's been all kinds of stuff under the sun and then some. And sometimes the client wants, cool, let's try this. Can you do this? Or can you do a lava base? I'm like, sure I can. Because I mean, a lot of it, I'm sure a lot of other, really incredible top level painters have said before, it's just technical application. So it's kind of getting the techniques to kind of either A, fool the eye and make it look like it's all a bunch of separate pieces, even though it's one solid piece of plastic, or, make it look like something it's not, like non-metallic metal or OSL, and trying to figure out my way of kind of getting that same thing done. I think a lot of it comes down to knowing also when you are done and you're happy with your piece, and it's okay to say, yeah, I'm good. Because we can all sit there and do 800 hours on one thing. And obviously, depending on how we have our muscle memory in our hands and how we see the colors, because we all see them differently regardless, how it all kind of pans out, right? And we all have varying levels of what we call finished. But, that's definitely one of those hurdles we all have to overcome. But yeah, definitely kind of circling back to the main question, I think having the ability to adapt to the project that was put in front of me allowed me not only to learn some really cool techniques, I get to apply them to my own models as well and really kind of dig in and perfect them.
So with commissions, and I know it'd be something that I would possibly struggle with if ever I was like commissioning. Do you ever like paint something really, really good, really, really cool, and you just kind of think to yourself, man, I wish I could keep this? Like,
yes and no. I mean, in a way, after you're kind of painting something, it's almost like sending your kid off to like kindergarten for the first day. It's just off into the free world. Here you go. But I always feel fortunate that my work gets to be out there, and I've always made a point of taking on commissions that the models will see the table. So like I always paint my stuff. Like every one of my models that I've painted sees the table. Even if it's just the once, with the exception of those Flames of War mid-war. But,
that's not your fault in your defense.
no, but I mean, by now maybe somebody might be enjoying them. I don't know, but yeah, having yeah, sometimes it's a tough go, but I try and get lots of photos and appreciate what I've done, and I'm like, wow, that's great. But like I said, I just kind of see it as that's what I did yesterday. What do I get to do today?
Yeah, that's really cool. So what have been some of your favorite projects, and unless you've got one that really stands out as your ultimate like favorite project that you've completed, either for yourself or as a commission?
I mean, I'm always working on stuff, as you've probably seen from the Instagram and everything. As far as like fully completed, so far a lot of the stuff, like the Crisis Protocol stuff, just over my shoulder. I've had a lot of fun with those models. Again, being like a comic book nerd for the longest time, it's cool to paint Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and as simple as some of the paint schemes are, like sometimes like they're like a 2-3 hour model, like that's it, like that's all it takes, because there's like green and purple, and it's just a matter of how fast you can blend and kind of do your thing, or you get caught up in it, and then next thing you know, it's 10, 12, 14, 15 hours like on the one arm. So I mean, overall, I think those models, because they're also a little bit larger, have been a big pleasure to paint. So on top of like the large collection that I still have to paint, yeah, like I said, the Troll King model I got to do, Throg, a couple years back, was really cool, because I've always loved that character from the Warhammer Fantasy lore.
Yeah,
Like he is the Troll King. Sorry, I think I lost you there for a minute.
That's fine. I can I'll do a clever edit. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
But that's okay. We'll kind of lead in with another question. So,
sure.
so you mentioned earlier, obviously, that you're kind of lucky enough to live in a city of about 500,000 people. But obviously, Canada being quite an expansive place. I live in Britain, which is teeny tiny. You realistically, I'm never more than half an hour from somebody who could probably play some form of game with me. How have you always found? Obviously, you've got your experience with like Flames of War, but how have you found like getting other games?
It's not that bad. I mean, I've always liked kind of helping build communities too, regardless whether it's online or in person. So kind of trying to be that spark, whether I'm the guy with the two armies that says, let's just play, or, hey, I noticed you have that. I have that too. And being kind of open about that. Just being able to chat hobbies kind of cool. So, I mean, it's not bad, but definitely I think there's growing opportunity now. A lot more people are taking up the hobby in various forms, which is awesome and encouraging and really energizing. But definitely, it's not nearly as I guess being as blessed as everyone in the UK or even in Europe, right? Depending the city, there's lots of opportunity because there's so many people in a smaller area.
Yeah, we're a lot more kind of densely populated over here, and depending on, the game system, I'm currently looking at trying to find like Batman games, for example, but there doesn't seem to be much of a calling. But I can go out and get a Warhammer game kind of like that. It's I suppose it's just what people roughly into kind of around your area. So what are some of your upcoming projects in the next kind of, say, for the rest of 2021? What are some of the projects?
Well, right now I'm taking part in the War Mistress 1-for-1, I guess, hobby challenge event thing, where we just kind of get off our butts and paint that pile of plastic. I was fortunate enough to have my grot mob. Crazy idea that came to me last year because I've always loved grots. And I thought, you know what? Like, I mean, my logo's a goblin. He's the OG. Why not do an army based around him with nothing but like grot tanks, killicans, grot stuff, with the exception of like a couple knobs, and just to kind of get in there and move stuff around. So, I mean, I'm slowly working on that. I've got bolt action stuff that's always on my table. I chip away at my Templars. I mean, lots of Marvel stuff. I'm sure there'll be 8 million other things that get released before I have a chance to even see summer. So, I've still got a couple commission pieces I'm working on kind of here and there. But I've always got something on my table, like always. So, I mean, personal projects, there's going to be lots, and I'm sure there'll be crazy amounts more. And then commissions, obviously, sometimes they're scheduled, sometimes they just fall into my lap. So I mean, I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but there's always something happening.
There's no right answer because everybody's got different projects. Some people are saying, well, I'm trying to build Twitch, or I've never been on Twitch in my life. I wouldn't even know what to necessarily do. As I said, kind of off camera to you, I'm not particularly technologically advanced.
Right.
But obviously, I know you've got a Twitch schedule.
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, I started that actually a little over a month ago. I mean, making the shift from Instagram Live that I've been doing for the last 2 years, and then moving over to Twitch, I just found it a better opportunity to be able to be engaged and engage everyone and kind of have more of an interaction with everyone. Plus, having multiple camera angles is always nice as a painter, so I can show what my hands are doing while here's my face, doing my thing. Plus, having higher production value is kind of nice. Because I mean, I at one point I went to school for radio broadcasting, so you kind of get that show in your head kind of idea, and you're like, oh, if I could just do this, and oh, if I could just do that, and kind of add all these cool, funky, like simple elements, but all together they're the sum of the parts, right? And it's a bigger thing. So I mean, I found that I mean, I'm an older dude, hence the OG Paintworks. So yeah, I know how to get on the internet. I know how to check my email. I can do Instagram-ish. But I mean, I'm still light years behind everyone, I swear. I'd rather not be on my devices. Like, I'll use my laptop here in the studio to like listen to Spotify while I'm painting, or listen to an audiobook, or watch YouTube or something while I'm kind of doing my stuff. But definitely, I'd rather be either brush in hand, teaching someone how to painting my stuff at a table with dice. Twitch is kind of fun. I mean, it might seem daunting, but I mean, doing what you're doing now, I don't see it much more of a jump.
And it probably isn't. It's going to be one of those things where I suppose as I learn more and as I kind of look at these sorts of things, I might, you know, expand over there into something. I think what's difficult for perhaps me and maybe some of the other guys is, you know, some of us do like shift work. So I could never sit here and say, you know, oh, I'll do a Tuesday 7 o'clock slot, because I might be free for 3 Tuesdays out of the month, but not the 4th. And that's just the nature of the beast for me. But some of the other guys, when, you know, we start building some of the other content and things like that, might be able to do things like that. And they may be a bit more, well, I know they're more technically advanced than me. We've got a couple of serious IT guys, but we'll just have to see where that goes.
Oh, so, for sure.
One of the kind of last questions I always sort of ask people before, you know, we kind of wrap up is asking them about what hobbies that you have outside of this hobby, because obviously, yes, it's something that consumes time for all of us.
Yeah.
But what else kind of takes your attention?
I love cooking, and I also love music.
What kind of music are you?
I mean, the knuckles say punk rock, so that kind of says it all.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been sat here going, what is that? Can't quite figure out what that says on his hands there, as you've kind of, you know, you're a bit like me, a handsy talker. So okay, that's pretty cool. Do you go to many gigs and stuff?
Well, I mean, the last little bit, not so much, but like I have been, I guess, a professional musician, whatever you want to call it, like a working musician for, geez, since I've been a teenager, so a while. And obviously,
is that sessional, or is that like tour work?
Sometimes, I mean, just kind of local, like within the province and stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy yet, but I mean, you know, it's always hopeful. But I've had some really awesome experiences and been fortunate to be kind of linked up with some incredible musicians. So I've done everything from like small clubs, big festivals, you know, lots of recordings, stuff like that. But yeah, kind of like punk rocky, metal-y, kind of fast, aggressive, lots of heart and soul.
Proper written stuff, none of this written by somebody else, given to several musicians to try out, and then overproduced and produced again.
Yeah, there's a couple of songs kind of floating around right now to that effect. And yeah, there's something said singing your own stuff.
Yeah, I think there's something in, you know, you do get good singers who perhaps they can translate or you know, make someone else's song fit their feel.
Oh, granted, yeah.
It's never the same as when you're writing from my thing, the music I listen to, which is a lot of metal, a lot of rock. Yeah. It's the guys have written it in the band, so you know, even if it's not the singer, it's at least his friend who's gone through this, and you know, it's just personal experiences, and you get the pains in your voice, you get the, you know, you get the things that you just don't necessarily get if somebody else has written it for you and you're just trying to make it fit what you're doing. And
yeah, it's definitely not like plastic wrap, break open the blister, here you go.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. So we'll call it there, my man, because you know, I know you've got Twitch later on today, and I don't want to take too much of your time. But if you just want to obviously do a little, you've probably got more following than me, but if you want to do a little shout out for your Twitch and let us know what your schedule is.
Sure. Yeah, my Twitch is obviously Twitch TV/OG Paintworks, same as the Instagram, except Twitch instead of Instagram. I stream live Mondays, 1 till 3 Eastern Standard, and on Wednesdays 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard for now. I mean, Wednesdays I might be moving around a little bit, but it's usually Mondays and Wednesdays. I always give like a heads up shout out, like 24 hours well before on Instagram live stories. That also goes to Facebook. And yeah, I just sit, paint, chat, do this, and try and get what I can done.
That's awesome, my man. So, well, thanks for taking part today, and obviously, congratulations for now sitting at the top of our leaderboard.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. But I mean, I honestly, from the sounds of it, I don't plan on staying there long. I didn't even plan to get in the first place, so I feel fortunate, definitely.
People keep breaking it, but it started at 3 minutes and 27 seconds, I think, and now we're down to, I think it was 1 minute 11. So you know, it's getting quicker. So you know, I like to hope that it's going to get beat, but you know, you'll definitely.
If anything, I'm helping somebody eye that up, right? So I'm just there to kind of be like the middleman and go for it. Take it away.
I'm sure somebody will come along and try. So thanks again for joining me today. And
thank you for having me.
I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Sounds great.
Cheers, buddy.